and welcome to Caged In. This is episode 96. 96, baby. Cage's been a lot of films, right? If you're new to the podcast, on here, we watch every single Nicolas Cage film to determine, is he the greatest actor of all time? Or does he deserve to be locked away in a cage and forced to be put in a leather catsuit and blown to smithereens by bombs on his wrists, ankles and testes? And a couple on his neck. So that gives you a clue of what film we're talking about today. You probably already know because it's in the show title, but it is Sion Sono's gonzo crazy samurai western revenge man on a mission film, Prisoners of the Ghostland. And my guest is the fantastic Ben Challoner, who you'll hear all about in due time. Again, if you are new to proceedings here, we spoil these films completely. So we will be talking about all the gory details that go into Prisoners of the Ghostland, which you can currently watch in cinemas. It's quite a limited release, and I think it's supposed to be hitting digital. That may just be a US thing, but if you can see it, check it out. It's a lot of fun, and obviously if you've already seen it, enjoy this conversation because it's great, and you'll learn a lot about Sion Sono and some fantastic recommendations from Ben in this chat as well. Before we go on with this one, obviously I'd like to apologise for the delay on this episode. You might be able to hear it in my voice, but I'm pretty ill, and I probably made I don't know, somewhat of a kind of mistake in the fact that I went to the Prince Charles Cinema Nicolas Cage marathon all-nighter where I watched The Rock, Con Air, Face Off, Drive Angry and Mandy over a 12-hour period, and I could feel myself progressively getting iller and iller over the night, and kind of ended up staying up over the kind of Saturday and Sunday period for like 37 hours and just felt like an absolute left exploded bollock since. You'll be able to hear all about that though next week, as I'm recording a special kind of recap of that event and talking to some people who were there, possibly talking to one of the people who was working at it. So that should be nice and fun. So with all of that out of the way, all that's left to do is to head to Samurai Town, get your leather catsuit on, and get raging with Cage. This week, we're heading to Samurai Town to talk about the newest slice of mania from poet turned gonzo filmmaker, the enigmatic and wholly visionary Japanese director Sion Sono's newest film, Prisoners of the Ghostland. His first English language film, which of course stars our boy, Nicolas Cage, as well as Bill Moseley, Sofia Boutella, Nick Cassavetes, and Tak Suraguchi. Joining me in this race against the clock, donning his leather catsuit, rigged to the teeth with explosives conveniently placed on his limbs, neck and bollocks, is podcaster, film fan, father, OG host of yours and my favourite triple bill linked by a word in the title podcast, Sudden Double Deep, and avid Asian cinema watcher, Ben Challoner. Are you feeling radioactive today, Ben?
What an intro, Petros. Thank you, man. Yeah, I'm very excited to chat about this film with you today. I mean, I remember we spoke about this months ago. You're like, you know, this film's coming out, and I'm saving it for you. And I was like, yes, mate. And then it kept getting delayed, and I was like, when is this going to happen? Oh, it feels a bit surreal that we're finally here now. But I couldn't be happier.
Well, one of the things, because I think all the time that I've known you, it's kind of weird. It's that thing of we've chatted a lot online and stuff like that, and I've always known you as the kind of Asian cinema guy. Obviously, like your like people who don't know your Twitter like name is in Japanese. Am I getting that right? Yeah, and stuff like
That's
that.
correct. Yeah.
And always
Yeah.
kind of these weird and wonderful films that you're like recommending and stuff like that. I just wanted to begin the chat by asking, like, how did you what was your entry point, and how did you kind of become such a avid fan of Asian cinema?
Yeah, awesome. Well, I mean, so I've been studying film like most of my life, like, and not just, we all watch films as kids and whatever. But when I got to my A levels, there was a film studies class at my college, and I was like, that's a bit of me. And my teacher was a massive fan of Takeshi Kitano, so he introduced me to all of his films. And that was the year that Battle Royale came out as well. So we went to see that together. And I just kind of realized, like, there's this side of cinema that's not represented in the West, which is like this super poetic, but really violent and kind of like esoteric and existential. And it just blew my mind. And that kind of moved me into like the Wong Kar-wai kind of elements and stuff like that. And as I got older, like Takashi Miike and on and on and on.
Yeah.
So that was my real entry point into it. But the time that my Twitter actually just turned into essentially like an East Asian cinema like fanboy site was when I had my daughter, which was January of last year. And I'd had to step away from Sudden Double Deep, sadly, because, I mean, I love that show and I love those guys. But I think the time I spent, because I threw myself into it so hard that I was spending all my time, writing pages and pages of notes on these films and coming up with all this trivia and, like doing these side episodes on the soundtracks and stuff. And I was just like, I can't commit to this anymore. So I backed away, and I decided that I was only going to watch films that, I really loved. And I think I started off by just watching like A Tale of Two Sisters and then like Audition and just all this really messed up horror stuff. And I just kept going with it. And I just started seeing my followers like grow and grow and grow. Amazing. And I was getting more and more interactions from people saying, oh, I love this film. And I was like, wow, this just happened naturally. And now we're almost like, 2 years later. And like you said, most people know me as the East Asian cinema guy, which I do watch other films, but I don't know.
Well, that's like, I long for the day that my life can be just watching films that I love, like you mentioned, because doing this podcast, it is just like my like viewing schedule. I'm actually looking at like the upcoming episodes for this podcast, and like, I gotta give people a little bit of as our friends over on Sudden Double Deep say, a little bit of a sizzle here. I've got 50 Shades Darker written on a board in front of me right now. That's not a film that I'm looking forward to watching. And it's but it's
what's the Coppola connection on that one?
So John Schwartzman was the DOP, so that is
oh, right.
Yeah, it's a weird and wonderful way I get to watch all these films, but I'm not going to give away what else is written in front of me, because there's some stuff I'm looking forward to chatting about and actually watching. But obviously we're here to talk about Nicolas Cage, and I must ask you before we get any further with proceedings, Ben, are you a Nick Cage fan?
Yeah, absolutely, unequivocally. I've loved him, again, like as long as I can remember. Like, I think my first kind of entry into like the Nick Cage sort of universe was the kind of Michael Bay stuff, like The Rock and what was it, Con Air.
Yeah.
And then John Woo put him in Face Off, and that, I just remember that film just blowing my mind. I couldn't believe that was a thing. And that was before I even thought about the intricacies of like, wait, so Nick Cage is like acting like Travolta, which is something that like, I think at the time didn't really hit me. But yeah.
There's a great story about like the script being shopped around for Face Off, where loads of studio execs were reading it and being like, but isn't this film going to cost loads on like the effects budget, because we're going to have to make that actor look like the other actor? And they're like, well, no, you just get that actor to act like the other actor, of course. Like.
It's easy when you think about it.
Yeah,
hilarious.
It feels,
oh man,
it feels very fitting that obviously you talk about John Woo, because obviously there's something fascinating about Nick Cage and kind of how he can bring an audience to a specific director, and I think it's like a testament to his, I don't know, the choices he makes, like in the way that, like, some for good, some for bad. Like sometimes he brings you to the attention of directors that don't deserve it because they're just shit. But like at other times he'll introduce, like, off of Face Off, I imagine tons of people would have watched Hard Boiled and loads of other John Woo stuff.
100%. I mean, you see it all the time on Twitter too, I'm sure. But, you know, when people are saying, like, has Nick Cage always been good, or has he just got good in the last few years? And if you look back at his filmography, he's been making like 5 or 6 films a year for the last 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
And, you know, one of them will usually be amazing. 2 of them will be kind of passable, and then 2 of them will be utter tripe.
Yeah.
And he's stayed pretty consistent with that. God love him, you know? And I mean, I think he thinks this whole thing is an adventure, which it really should be. And, you know, why pick the same films all the time? I mean, The Rock, for example, he's making millions and millions of dollars every year, basically playing the same character in the same film. And I mean, you know, fair play to him, but Nick Cage does not do that.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I'm going to have to push you. You obviously talked about the kind of entry point, but do you remember what was the first Nick Cage film? The moment you kind of, your eyes widened, you went, wow, here he is.
I think the first Nick Cage film I saw in the cinema was Gone in 60 Seconds. But I definitely know. I think it was The Rock. I think The Rock was my first ever film of his.
I as we're speaking now, this coming Saturday, I will be watching The Rock, Con Air, Face Off, a mystery film, and Mandy on the big screen at the Prince Charles Cinema, like, Cage marathon, which, like,
I love those marathons they do. They're amazing.
So yeah, I've never seen any of those films on the big screen, much to my like dismay. But like, yeah, the fact, I don't know, The Rock was, and I'm looking forward to revisiting The Rock, because it's one that, like, of that testosterone trilogy, as I call it, it's possibly like my least favorite. Like, it's like my personal ranking is Con Air.
I haven't seen it in like 2 decades, I don't think, but I just remember having such fond memories of it. I should revisit it. I don't know. I mean, now if I was going to pick a Nick Cage film that I could just watch every day without any worries whatsoever, can you guess what it is?
Well, that might lead me on to which is this the same as your favorite Nick Cage film?
It is, yeah. Oh, is that a question for later?
That is the next question. Ben, you've set me up perfectly. Which is your favorite Nick Cage film? Or do you want me to guess?
Go for it. I'll give you a clue. It's not an East Asian director.
Actually,
that doesn't really narrow it down much, does it? Maybe it takes 2 out of the equation.
Yeah, I was going to say that's 2 out of close to 100. So there's 98 left. I'm just going to pull this one. Mandy.
Oh no! I mean, I love that film, and I saw that in the cinema, and it melted my face. It's incredible. No, it's Wild at Heart, David Lynch,
which perfectly is a perfect answer for this episode, because that is Sion Sono's favorite Nicolas Cage film as well. So, like,
I kind of love that. I read that as well. So yeah, Nick said this is probably the wildest film I've ever done, and Sono went, no, it's fucking not. You did Wild at Heart.
Yeah.
Which is just so perfect. I love that response. He's like, he had the perfect marketing tag, and he was like, no, this is wrong. It's not as wild as Wild at Heart.
Yeah. Which is a film, like, I'm kind of like, because there's this mystery film at the Prince Charles, like, for a while I was thinking, I hope it's Wild at Heart. And then they, like, said, it's a film we've never shown before. And I'm like, they always show Wild at Heart. It's not going to be Wild at Heart. So, like,
it's probably going to be like Willy's Wonderland or something.
I hope not.
See, I quite like that. We covered that on Sudden Double Deep. I came back a few months ago for the Willy episode. So we had Willy Millie and Free Willy 2, along with Willy's Wonderland. But yeah.
I enjoy Willy's Wonderland. It's more the fact that, like, in the run up of that film coming out, like, I watched it maybe 3 or 4 times because, like, doing interviews and stuff like that. So I'm kind of I'm a bit willied out. Do you know what I mean?
No, I get it. It just reminded me so much. I'm a big gamer. Like, I love my PlayStation, and it reminded me a lot of those like leveling up games.
Yes.
You have a boss, then you have a pinball match, then you have a refresh. You know, I like the momentum of it. And again, like, he took a chance on a first-time director, and I just thought it was awesome.
Yeah, there's like that is the thing throughout Cage's career, and it's like, I think one of the things a lot of people forget about Cage as well is he's worked with possibly most of the best directors of all time. Do you know what I mean? Especially like in American cinema, and like he's, do you know what I mean, like revolutionary, like East Asian directors as well, John Woo and Sion Sono. He's kind of like, it's like he's got this wish list of directors, and it's like, I guess most actors would look at like De Palma, Scorsese, like Ridley Scott, Francis Ford Coppola, and go like, I want to work with those guys. And it's like Cage is like, I've done it. Do you know what I mean? So there's only like a kind of handful of guys, whether it's like like Spielberg or like there's certain people he hasn't worked with, but like he's ticked off a lot of the list of kind of amazing directors.
Definitely. And he doesn't stick to a genre either. Like, I love it when Nick Cage surprises everyone. Like, obviously Pig came out, right? And you did that awesome series of Pigcast, which I just loved. But I thought that was amazing, man. You smashed that. But people are going like, wow, this is a revelatory performance from Nick Cage. And I was like, did you see David Gordon Green's Joe? Because he's given us this before. You know, it's there if you look for it. But I love that he keeps surprising people, and I'm sure he'll surprise us more next. I mean, I remember hearing he was doing a Tiger King film, and kind of my heart sank because I was like, that's going to be awful. But I was like, but Nick Cage is doing it, so it's going to be amazing in that way, you know?
Yeah.
And then I heard that fell through, so God knows what will give us next. But yeah, I'm here for it.
But then it's opened up the kind of floodgates for these. There's like a couple of interesting projects like on his docket coming up. There's a film called Butcher's Crossing, which is like an adaptation of like a really revered like old novel, and he's just signed up to like a Western where he's got like a kind of, I think it's like a degenerative mind disease, and his daughter's got it as well, and he's kind of taking her across the frontier to track down the people who killed her mum, like killed his wife and her mum. But it sounds almost like in the Pig vein of things, where it's like it's very much set up in that classic Western format of like vengeful man, but then sounds like it's got this, I don't know, more poetic, beautiful edge to it. And I'm here for this reconnaissance that we're getting. This kind of like
reconnaissance for sure.
It's he could have like easily gone down the Liam Neeson route, and I kind of like, I like that Pig is like the fork in the road for that almost. It's like he could have gone, this is going to be an all-out action movie. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to be kicking ass, taking no names, or taking names, or taking no names. He might not take names. He might not take names. He might not
no bubble gum.
Yeah,
doing nothing.
I want no names. I don't even care about the names. I just want fucking vengeance. But like he's gone, you know what? I'm going to take these films that subvert people and play about with those ideas of revenge thrillers or the Western genre or whatever, and I'm gonna do it at an skewed angle. And just like, the man's got, I don't know, for all of the shit he's made, he's got great taste every now and then. Do you know what I mean? Like not even now and then, like a lot of the time, he has fantastic taste.
No, I totally agree. I think you're going to be on the right side of history with this podcast, because like he's got some exciting shit coming up for sure. And you've already set up for it.
Amazing. Well, let's kind of get on to talking about Sion Sono first before we really delve into Prisoners of the Ghostland. So, what was your
Sure.
introduction to Sion Sono as a director?
So I actually, for someone that's been into Asian cinema for a long time, I actually came to his stuff really late. It was about 4 years ago. So the way we used to record Sudden Double Deep was I would go over to Darren and Jeanette's for the weekend, and we would just drink, smoke, eat, and record for like 48 hours straight. And that would be our month's worth of content, right?
Yeah.
So I'd go in, I'd watched like 15 films and wrote like 100 pages of notes, and we just do the whole thing. But those two are night owls and I'm an early riser. So what would happen is, it'd get to like 10 p.m. and they're like, let's start another film. And I'm falling asleep on the sofa. But then in the morning, I'm up at 7 a.m. and they're asleep till 11 or something. Yeah. So I used to watch whatever Daryl had. Like he had like the Arrow channel and all this stuff on his Amazon. So I used to wake up and just like go through. And I saw Tag was on Amazon Prime. And I didn't even know who Sono was at the time, but I was like, that film sounds mental. So I just pressed play. And then it literally blew my mind. I don't know if you've got around to that one yet I know you're going through his filmography a bit now, aren't you?
Well, no, I started to watch Tag when it was on Amazon Prime. And then like, for whatever reason, like I probably like started it at like 11 o'clock at night, kind of saw that like jaw dropping opening.
Yeah.
Fell asleep and then kind of life got in the way and went to rewatch it. And then it's like, you do that thing, you search on Amazon Prime and you're like excited, like, because it's not like Netflix. Like it comes up and you're like, yay. And then you're like, it's no longer free. Fuck you, Amazon. So yeah, it was one of those situations, but like it's jumped up the list since I've
I recommend you drink yourself silly one night, wake up really hungover, make yourself a vat of coffee and press play at 7 a.m. on Tag and it will blow your mind. And the second it finished, Daryl and Jeanette, like they woke up a bit late and I was like, I've got to tell you about this film I just saw. It's like, because I won't spoil it, but it looks like this exploitative like bit of nonsense. But like most of his films, it's not. It's a really powerful feminist film about really clever existential ideas. And it's just disguised in this schlocky mental piece of genre cinema. So yeah, I fell down the rabbit hole hard after that. And I know when you go on Letterboxd, it kind of lists the director's films in terms of their popularity in general. So I think that's like interactions on Letterboxd as well as the ratings and stuff. And I just went down from the most popular down. So we did My Love Exposure, the like Cold Fish, Anti-Porno, the Suicide Club, Strange Circus, all of them basically. And now, there's not, the only ones I haven't seen are like really obscure short films that you can't really get anywhere. So I've pretty much seen them all now, and I can hand on heart say he's one of my favorite. He's one of my favorite directors. But there's also a documentary about him, and the more you learn about him, he's just a really clever artist. He's a painter and a poet and a musician, and he's just one of those guys. He kind of does it all. I love him. Love the bits.
Before we talk about this one, like, what are your let's get some recommendations. What are your kind of top 3 Sono films that people should see? Because it's watching this like the first time, like this, like much to my dismay and kind of the dismay of people listening, was my first Sion Sono film, like from start to end. Obviously, I'd started Tag.
I think that's going to be a lot of people's story. I think that really is, which is why it's amazing that he did it. I think, whether you like the film or not, the fact he's done it is going to open up his work to a whole new audience.
And I think, it really brings back to that point I made about Cage, kind of like making these great decisions to work with directors, whether it's like a John Woo or in this case, Sion Sono, to kind of like, this might not be Sion Sono's best film. You'll have to listen to find out if it is. But like at the same time, like it opens up a whole world of films. Like the guy's filmography, like it's ridiculous. Like what? He's 1, 2, like his output rivals Cage's, and like he's not just acting in stuff, he's writing and directing. Do you know what I mean? Like he's not acting, he's writing and directing a whole film. And I think it's like something like 2015, like 5 films or something ridiculous like that Sion Sono put out, and it's like,
yeah, I think he'd been on post-production on a lot of them for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, the only other person that's come close is Takashi Miike, who, you know, he's in his 70s now, I think, or almost, and he's still pumping out about a film every year or two. But there was a moment where he was doing 3 or 4 a year, and it's just madness. They've just got a really strong work ethic out there, you know, and the infrastructure's there. So if you have the connections and you have the money, the funding, you just go for it, hell for leather. I kind of love it. I mean, it's my I've never been to Japan, but it's 100% on my bucket list. I kind of begged my partner. I was like, should we go to holiday there one year? And she said, no, but I give you my full blessing if you want to go there for like 2 or 3 weeks by yourself. And I'm like, okay, I can handle that.
So yeah, back to the point. What are the kind of recommendations for you of like Sono films for people?
Hey, well, look, I mean, it's hard to recommend unless you know the person, I reckon. And the reason I say that is there's a whole like breadth of what he does. So for me, I'm a fucked up person, and I love really dark, depressing, really disturbing films. They actually make me happy. It's like a visceral release that I get. So, I mean, I would say like Cold Fish is one of the go-tos, because it's a serial killer thriller in a kind of classic sense, but it's got this really dark, perverse sense of humor. It's kind of based on a true story, but not really. There's a lot of like artistic license put in. But it's just really, really dark, and it'll really challenge you, even if you're like a hard, you know, you're like, oh, I've seen Seven. It's like, fuck Seven. Wait until you've seen Cold Fish. You wish there was a head in the box at the end, you know? He's obviously Love Exposure, you mentioned earlier. That's his kind of magnum opus. That's the one he's going to go down. That'll be on his gravestone, I think. But again, it's got this massive barrier in the middle, and I'm not talking about subtitles. I'm talking about the fact it's 4 hours plus. And getting someone to sit down for that long, you know, maybe you could try and do an hour a night, like one of your shows that you binge through or something. But that it's just an amazing film. I've seen it about 8 times now, and every time I get a bit more out of it. Yeah, because it's, you know, kind of melodramatic and kind of like soap opera almost. But the more it develops, and again, I'm trying not to spoil anything, you won't guess the final act. Basically, it just goes full on insanity.
Well, yeah, like from like the moment one of that film, like when I first started it, I was like, oh, this seems a bit dour and a bit like, do you know what I mean? Like, and kind of like, because it's about like, without any spoil, it's about like religion is a very like big thing of that film, and I was a bit like, oh boy. And then like it just kind of, and it's kind of what I love about like East Asian cinema a lot of the time, is there's no barriers between genre. It feels like it's like we can kind of like have a moment where it's like, oh, it's a martial arts movie. It's kind of like, it's a samurai. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of got all this, like, it's got this, but then the next moment it's melodramatic. The next moment it's funny as fuck. Like, it's like,
you're absolutely right, man. That's a really good point, because I think we are so focused on putting things in a box here. You know, what is that film? Is it a comedy? You're like, well, it's funny, but it's also horrific. You know, that sort of thing. Yeah. Whereas in Japan, and, you know, I think anime has a massive part to do with this. It's because like anime, people think anime is a genre of film. Oh, I don't like anime. It's like, well, no, anime is a medium, and you could have an anime film about absolutely anything. So that really helps too.
Yeah, I guess it's like that same thing of going like, I don't like animation. Do you know what I mean? As like a whole, as a blanket term, and it would be like, oh no, I don't like Blue Sky films. I just don't like that in-house animation style. It's like, but you love Pixar. It's like, you could like yeah, but like it's something about Japanese cinema, and I think it's like, we'll get into this, I'm sure, but like I think it is that like untethered nature, and guess it's like ignorance from a Western eye. Is like it feels exotic's not the right word, but like is that feeling of watching the unknown that's like even more like fascinating. Do you know what I mean? Especially from like a Western perspective of like it's like a cult, like watching something like Love Exposure. It's like it's a culture you don't like. You I don't know, like you can't understand like just from watching a film, which makes it even more kind of like there's an excitement in the not knowing of East Asian
I
cinema.
love hearing you say this, Petros. Honestly, that sort of point of view, though, I think it's so important because I think again, a lot of people do negate it because they're like, I don't understand this. This doesn't make sense. That's not what I would do. Or yeah, that character reaction doesn't make sense. And I'm like, there's more to this than you're seeing. You know, that, like I said, it is the cultural difference, but there's also different reference points. And yeah, a lot of it is really heightened. And, you know, I mean, especially if you look at, say, Tag, like you mentioned the intro to that film, it's basically a bunch of schoolgirls on a bus, and then this invisible wind starts coming down and cutting them all in half. And she's running away from this invisible wind that's just, you know, decimating and leveling all these girls. And you just kind of think, what the hell is going on? And then the next thing you know, they're all at school giggling, talking about some boy they fancy. And there's no link between the two where it kind of goes, how did that get to there? Yeah, so I can go on about it forever. But I mean, look, just for your listeners, if you are like, you know, looking to get into Sono, I'll just quick fire off a few more that's worth looking into. If you're into like David Lynch and stuff like that, he did a film called Strange Circus, which I'm quite wary of saying anything's Lynchian because it kind of just means, it's a bit weird.
Yeah.
But this one is kind of nightmarish in the kind of Red Room way. It's a dark history in a Laura Palmer way. It's really worth checking out. He did kind of his breakthrough films in 2001. It's called Suicide Club, which is just this phenomenal piece of work about like this. Yeah, like one person starts, kills himself, and it becomes like this epidemic, and they're trying to figure out why. And it's all about disillusionment in Japan in the teens, not dissimilar to the way that Kinji Fukasaku did with Battle Royale. And he did a sequel to that called Noriko's Dinner Table, which it couldn't be further from Suicide Club in terms of its content, but the fact that it's linked thematically is just genius. If you like your softer side of cinema, which I guess if you listen to a Nicolas Cage podcast, it probably isn't high on your agenda, but he's done some really beautiful family films. Like he did one called Love and Peace, which is about this failing musician who befriends this little turtle that's kind of been hit with radioactive whatever, and it turns into a kaiju film. So it's kind of like this Godzilla, but it's this really soft-hearted turtle. Well worth checking that one out. Or he did one called The Whispering Star with his wife, which is this basically a silent black and white film about a delivery robot. So if you can imagine an Amazon delivery driver, but it's a robot, and they just go through the outer limits of space. So she will take your package for maybe like 100 light years to get to this planet and drop it off. And again, it's just mind blowing. I'm getting overexcited just talking. But and if you're into your more perverted side of stuff, he did a film called Anti-Porno, which was part of the Roman porno kind of reimagining. And it was kind of these pink films, you know, where it was softcore porn with a storyline. And he decided to take it this just absolutely amazing way where it's this huge indictment on the treatment of women in the Japanese film industry, and not just in porn. And it has a twist halfway through that blows your mind. And then the final moments are just absolutely epic. And that one's actually released by Third Window. And yeah, I can't recommend that one enough. Again, it's hard to recommend it because you're basically looking at naked women for 90 minutes. But yeah, it's just phenomenal. And yeah, the guy's a true artist. You can't really go wrong. There's not many films of his you could pick that would be a bad place to start. Yeah,
well, that was one that that was the second Sion Sono film I watched all the way through. And it very much feels like one that I'm going to have to, I think I mentioned to you in a message, like once I'm more well versed in the Sion Sono universe, like I'll double back to, because it feels like there's a lot to unpack in a film like Amphiporno.
100%. Yeah, he was angry. I think he got the offer, took it, and said, "I'm going to fuck with these guys," and he got away with it. I've seen the other Roman pornos, and that they reinvented, and they're nowhere near as good. They're more base level, surface level, titillating, you know. And he really had something to say with it, and yeah, just genius.
Well, there's one more Sion Sono film I wanted to mention before we get into
Of course,
this
yeah.
one, which is
yeah.
Why Don't You Play in Hell? Which I think if any of his films I could see Nick Cage in, of the things I've seen, it feels like Cage could be in that film, specifically as the leader of the rival gang. The you know the guy I'm talking about, the guy who like
yeah.
He like Cage would be perfect in that role. Like I just think like the kind of madcap energy of like, we're no longer going to dress like rockabillys. We're all going to wear kimonos, and this kind of like, I don't know, somewhat dashing, somewhat threatening guy who is also like full of humor and like life. Yeah, I could like, and it's, I don't know, since watching that film, I'm like, what I don't know, why wasn't Prisoners of the Ghostland
Well,
a bit more like that film?
I completely get what you're saying, and I do agree he would be interesting in that role. But yeah, no, that's Shinichi Sasumi, and that guy is a legend, and he's part of the reason that I love that film so much.
Mm-hmm.
He gives it everything. Yeah. He's a guy that, you know, he works a lot with Sabu. I don't know if you know him. He's another kind of eccentric, esoteric, like Japanese auteur. So I keep being really pretentious with these words, but I do feel like they're more than just filmmakers. They are like, they're auteurs. Yeah, he's so funny in that film. But ironically enough, right, so that I feel like that film is the most like Tarantino-ish of all of his films. And actually, I think the one director I'd like to see Cage work with, who he hasn't worked with yet, would be Tarantino, because I think that he would get something really, really interesting from him.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, and it wouldn't be that normal Cage Rage kind of thing. I think he would get something really, like almost like John Travolta in Pulp Fiction, where he got this like mellow surf rock kind of.
Yeah. Well, it's like that. I'm always reminded of that thing that Tarantino wanted Adam Sandler to play the Bear Jew in Inglourious Basterds.
Yeah.
And I love that idea. And so I've been listening to a podcast recently called Truly Happily Madison, who are going through all of the Happy Madison films.
Love
and
it.
They always mention that fact. And I'm just like, it just gets my brain whirring, going, Cage in a Tarantino film would be amazing. Do you know what I mean? Even if it's like, I don't know, as this, you could imagine like Tarantino as well doing like not an Elvis biopic, but like something in that world of like a kind, I don't know, almost like how he did with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, with like this aging Hollywood star. Like, love to see like Tarantino do. He's probably not going to, because he's got one more film left. But like,
I know, yeah,
an aging rock star, like a kind of in the Elvis mold or something like that.
I almost don't want to think about it though. You know, like, I don't want to think what would Tarantino do with him. I just want him to do something with him, and I want to see it. Like, I remember seeing Spike Jonze' film, the adaptation, and just like, again, going, holy fuck, like,
this is
how did he see that in him? And how did he, like, I love that. That was just the biggest, nicest, most beautiful surprise. And I want that again. I want to be completely surprised. I mean, as much as I loved Pig, and trust me, I loved it. It's my film of the year so far, if you don't count the new Evangelion that came out. But I wasn't like surprised by his performance, because I know Cage can do this. I've seen it in Joe. I know he's a legend. And everyone's kept going, what the hell? Where did this come from? I'm like, no. This is Cage. So yeah, I want to be really surprised again. I think Tarantino can do it.
Perfect. Well, let's talk about Prisoners of the Ghostland, Ben.
Let's do it.
As I like to always do on this podcast, is put it on my guest to give us a synopsis of this film. So can you tell us what the fuck this film is about, Ben?
I could try. Yeah. It's funny, because I talk about, Sion, I call him Sion Sono, but yeah, you're right, it's Sion Sono, actually. He does films that, like I said, are deeper than they appear. And I do worry with this one that I'm not sure how much depth there is more than what appears. So I'd like to hear your opinion on that later. But yeah, basically it's this kind of frontier town called Samurai Town where it's semi-modern. They've got like neon signage and there's cars and stuff like that. But it's very much this old style saloon type of dusty one-horse town kind of look. And he's a bank robber who has been arrested for robbing a bank and killing a few people and a child, apparently. And he randomly gets released by this strange character called the Governor, played by Bill Moseley, whose adopted granddaughter, I believe it was.
Mm-hmm.
You have to forgive me. I've only seen it once, and it was about a week ago.
No, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Has been taken by the, again, I don't even know the terminology here, by something in the Ghostland, taken hostage, and she's being consumed by them. And apparently they've heard that he's the only man that can win her back. And I don't know how he's heard that, where it's come from, but yeah. So he gives him a suit that's made of leather, and it has bombs rigged at a few certain places, like his neck and his testicles. And it's basically, if you try and touch or get angry with my daughter or my granddaughter, your throat will explode. And if you get aroused by her and try and do anything, your balls will explode.
Yeah.
And you have to get her back to me within 3 days. Otherwise, your whole shit will blow up and you're dead. Is that about it?
That is about it. So what were your initial thoughts on the film? What were you kind of expecting? Obviously, like, being this Sion Sono fan and kind of being a Cage fan, like, did you have any expectations going into it?
Yeah, I mean, how could I not, I mean, okay, the first thing I'll say is I'm always wary of an East Asian director doing their first English language film.
Yep.
The main reason being, I think that they try to westernize their voice,
mm-hmm.
which I think is a wrong move. I think you can make a very much Japanese film in English. You don't have to make an Americanized film just because it's an American or in English. Sorry. But the other thing is that, like, I think it's harder for Japanese directors to direct English language speakers.
Mm-hmm.
And so the dialogue often comes across as quite jilted and stuttering, and it disconnected almost. Like, there are directors that do it perfectly. Like Park Chan-wook did this film called Stoker.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen that. It's just incredible. It's actually written by Wentworth Miller, who is one of the guys from Prison Break. Yeah, right. And obviously John Woo's another example. He just smashes it every single time. But you also get like Kim Ji-woon, who did I Saw the Devil, A Tale of Two Sisters and all of that. He did an English language film called The Last Stand with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Johnny Knoxville.
Yeah.
And it's not dissimilar to this, actually. It's like he's the sheriff of this like desert town, and they've got these career criminals flying through, and he has to set up this like barricade that's going to be the last stand between him and these things. And it just wasn't that great. So I definitely was a bit trepidatious, but like super excited too. And I'll be honest with you, it pretty much was exactly what I was expecting. It was fun, and it was wild, and it was crazy, but it wasn't as exciting or clever or deep as I think I've come to expect from Sono, and the ones that I love the most from him.
Well, I guess one of the things to talk about on that point is obviously like this is a rare case where it's a film that isn't written by Sion Sono either, right? So
Sure.
this is written by Aaron Hendry and 60 Reza 60 Safai. So
Yeah.
like, do you think that has anything to play on the fact that this isn't like this isn't your typical Sion Sono film?
Definitely. I mean, so if you want a bit of background knowledge, so I'm friends with this guy Adam Terrell, who is the CEO and founder of Third Window Films.
Mhm.
They're a kind of producer and distributor of East Asian cinema in the UK mainly, and he's released a bunch of his films. So if you've seen Cold Fish or Tag or Love Exposure on Blu-ray, those are his. And I asked him if he had any stories about him, and he said, yeah. I was there when he got Prisoners of the Ghostland. I was like, can you tell me more? And I asked him if I could talk about it on the podcast today, and he said yes. So I'll give you the kind of brief one. But basically, him and Sion went to LA together twice. The first time was to kind of get some inspiration for a film and to write a script together. They came back to Japan and they had it translated into English, and then made all these appointments with, like XYZ, which is the company that produced Prisoners of the Ghostland. So they went back and they were pitching it all over town. And it was basically this kind of road movie serial killer film. Like, do you remember California with Brad Pitt and David Duchovny and Juliette Lewis? And do you remember that film?
No. Sounds right up my street,
gosh.
though.
Definitely check that one out. My Lord. But yeah, sorry. So it was just kind of this road serial killer film, but it's quite a classic, like throwback film,
Yeah.
And it was turned down everywhere, including XYZ. They were like, it's too old fashioned. Everything has to be high concept these days. This is not what they were looking for. But while he was in that pitch meeting for this, XYZ said to him, we've got this script for Prisoners of the Ghostland. We'd be interested in you for. And, I don't think Sono was like super pumped for it, but at the same time, he was quite desperate to make an English language film or break America, so to speak. So that's kind of where it went to. So yeah, I think it wasn't a passion project in that sense. It wasn't something that he birthed from his brain, but I'm sure he threw it all into it. And I'm sure you know as well all about the kind of problems that came through, right?
Yeah, so obviously, like, this was supposed to shoot in Mexico. And
it started in Mexico.
And Cage kind of had all the, like, they kind of, him and Sion Sono had these ideas of what the character of hero would be. Like, Cage was very much like, I want to play him like Charles Bronson in a Western. Do you know what I mean? They had these kind of Sergio Leone, like, touch points of like the spaghetti Western and stuff like that. And then, yeah, Sion Sono had a heart attack. And I think, like, again, it's a testament to Cage. He was like, right, well, it was his idea. Let's move production to Japan then.
That's it, man. Yeah, they were literally filming in Mexico. I think it was Imogen Poots instead of Sofia Boutella.
Yep.
And it was Ed Skrein instead of
Nick Cassavetes.
What's his chops? Thank you. Yes, thank you. And they both were like, no, we're not going to Japan. So dropped out. But yeah, wow. And I mean, I love Cage for that. I think they got on really well, and that was why he did it. But I heard about the heart attack, and yeah, I was so sad and worried, man, because he's not that old yet, and he's got a lot more in him. I'll be really interested to see what he does now after this reaction. But yeah, no. So yeah, they moved it to Japan.
Well, I think it's that thing of like that. I don't know if it is the kind of heart attack or like the kind of like mixture like of the heart attack and like it not being one of his scripts and stuff like that. But like, it feels like to me there's like, because I know like once it moved to Japan, the budget got cut, like, and because of the health conditions, like there was insurance issues, I believe. Like that's the speculation I've heard. Of like,
it was it was quartered, right? It wasn't it like 20 million and it went down to about 5.
Yeah.
And that's what
Yeah. So like, obviously, they're like, they're as soon as someone has a heart attack, they're like, we can't put the money we wanted to in this or whatever, and it's like,
yeah.
But like, it feels like there are elements of this film missing. Do you know what I mean? Like, there are kind of like, there's a tension that builds and builds and builds and builds, and it's settled with a conversation, and it feels like that should have been like an explosion of like energy, action, and all sorts of chaos. Instead, we get a conversation, like, which is, I don't know, it's kind of like more of a whimper than a bang.
Well, apparently it was much longer. I think Sono's cut was about 2 hours 20. And yeah, XYZ cut it without his knowledge, basically. So yeah, but yeah, I don't know how much better Sono's cut would have been. If I'm being honest, well, you know, it's hard to explain. I enjoy the film. You know, I'm going to watch it again. I really like. I mean, we'll get into it with Nick Cage. I thought he was awesome in it. But yeah, I think out of the 20 odd films of Sono's that I've seen, this will be definitely kind of at the lower end of the ones that I, you know, really, really feel for.
So yeah, let's kind of pick apart the film a bit and like talk about some of the key players. Like, so let's not get to Cage yet. Let's talk about Sofia Boutella. Like, are you like, how aware were you before this, and like, what did you think of Sofia Boutella's performance in this film?
Yeah, I mean, basically, I think I've only seen her in Climax. I mean, I might have seen her in something else, but I can't really remember.
I think she played the villain in The Mummy, the Tom Cruise like terrible dark universe film. Yeah,
I don't think I saw that. Okay, was she good in that?
I haven't seen it. I just know she.
Right, okay. And do you know what? I thought she was good in this. I thought she had a really poorly written character. She had nothing to do, really. She was just there. She was just the victim, the one that was, you know, locked up and then saved, and then locked up again and then saved. Yeah, I don't know. And again, I think that speaks to the language barrier maybe between the director and the actor, potentially. Or maybe it was just like that on paper. I don't know. I haven't read the script. But yeah, I definitely thought that there was more that could have been done with that character.
Definitely. I think like what she has got, she like, you know, she's got this like, I think what's great about Sofia Boutella as an actor is that she's got this mystique, and like kind of like she can convey a lot with just a look and stuff like that. You can kind of like, but yeah, there are moments in this, and she is just, I don't know, she feels like a prop as opposed to like a person. And
that's a really good way of putting it.
And it's it is that thing of, I don't know. I've got a hot take about this film, and I'm should I say it now? I'm gonna fucking say it now, aren't I, Ben? To me, this feels like a modern retelling of Steven Spielberg's Hook.
Right.
Hear me out here. Right?
Oh man. Okay. I mean, it's been a minute since I've revisited that one too.
So hear me out here. You've got like a villain who is obsessed with time. There is like a whole sequence where he is talking to one of his granddaughters, Susie, who like he makes her become a clock, and like him and a chorus of people all go tick tock, which is like a key scene in Hook when Dustin Hoffman has what's his name? Who Framed Roger Rabbit stars Bob Hoskins. That's the one. Bob Hoskins as Smee, just like tick tock, and it like the aesthetic of this film, like there's this wasteland of these like kind of the Rat Man and his like kind of rat clan remind me of like Rufio and the Lost Boys. You've got this kind of land of forgotten people which feel very much like the Lost Boys, and then you have this kind of I don't know, like almost, you don't get much about Hero's history. You get this thing that he was a bank robber, but he almost feels like you get this idea that he was this Robin Hood-esque. Do you know what I mean? Like he's this kind of like man who like has a heart somewhere in there, even though his life has gone down this beaten track. And you get that in Hook as well. You get that with Peter Pan, that he's grown up and kind of disenfranchised and lost the magic of Neverland, and is the premise of that film is he is given 3 days, I believe, by Hook to kind of get his shit together, learn the ways of being Peter Pan, and come save his children. So this is, and there is a key scene in Hook when a clock comes toppling down, which is basically kind of like the final moment of this film. So I'm having this out here on record on a podcast that Prisoners of the Ghostland is a modern retelling of Hook. Thank you. Good night.
Jesus Christ. All right, then we're done. Can I plug some stuff? Or no. Wow, man. Do you know what? The more you've painted a picture there, and it's hard to argue against it. Yeah. Wow.
Maybe I should have told you to watch Hook in preparation and not told you what as for why, or kind of like halfway through watching it, you would have been like, oh shit, I think I know why Petrus has made me watch Hook.
Yeah, no. I mean, you're right. I mean, especially all those like the vermin characters, like you said, you know, I'm a man. It's that makes a lot of sense. I have to rewatch Hook now.
And we get a moment in Prisoners of the Ghostland when Hero like kind of returns, and it's like people understand him to be the hero that he is. Do you know what I mean? And then, like I'm really beating this drum about Hook, but like it reminded me there's a moment in Hook when the kids start grabbing like Robin Williams' face and like pushing it back, and like one of the kids like, there you are, Peter. Like he's like kind of pushing the wrinkles back to see the child that once was there. And it's like, yeah, that whole thing. And this film is littered with these kind of like orphan children like running around, and they very much like take Sofia Boutella's Bernice under their wing. They're kind of like worshipping Hero. And yeah, like again, Hook is that thing that they all rise up together to take on Hook. And that is very much what Hero's purpose is. He's this kind of like lone character, comes to this place to unite the people, rouse them up to take on the governor and Samurai Town.
Yeah. Do you know what? I've read so many hot takes about this film, and not a single person has brought up Hook before. I mean, yeah.
I've been sitting on this. I did a wee hint on Twitter because I just posted a still of Nick Cage stood in front of that clock and the clock from Hook, and just kind of like put it out there, just kind of no context, just being like Hook 1992, Prisoners of the Ghostland 2001, and just probably about 5 likes.
Prisoners of the Ghostland.
Yeah.
Oh man, I remember when I tweeted that I was watching the film. One of the writers, Reza, I think it was, he retweeted it. So I might even try and message him and be like, "Dude, were you watching a lot of Hook when you wrote this?"
We follow each other, me and Reza.
Oh, cool.
So I might have to get him on the podcast to ask him. Just like first question, just like I've been here, really like focused. So what's your deal with Hook? Are you a Hook fan? Do you like Peter Pan? Do you like Steven Spielberg? Just one track mind down that.
Just leaving the breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
Man.
That's my hot take out of the way.
You mentioned Sofia Boutella, but like the other sort of the big English language sort of stars that aren't Nick Cage are Nick Cassavetes and Bill Moseley. And I actually think both of them are fucking tip top in this.
Yes.
I really enjoyed it. Like I said, the line delivery can be a bit stilted at times, but I think that's important because he knows there's going to be such a strong audience in Japan as well. And so if it's going to be in English, they have to have this kind of slower cadence to them. But Cassavetes is this like gnarly dude in this. I loved it. Like just hamming it up and chewing the scenery like to all hell. I mean, literally at the end, he's like fucking the Toxic Avenger or something.
Well, there's this for a lot of people. Like I know, like a lot of people call for a Travolta and Cage reunion after Face Off. Like for me, as like a kind of like Cage fanboy, seeing that Nick Cassavetes and Cage were back on screen together, like after the kind of like gap from Face Off, because obviously, Nick Cassavetes like playing Dietrich in that. I was like, they're back together. I was like, that's what I was. I like Ed Skrein, but I'm glad he pulled out so we could get this reunion of two legends.
Definitely. I can't see Skrein in it now, to be honest, even if I think really hard. But Bill Moseley, I've just got nothing but time for as well. I love him in everything. He's
I've got a little clip.
He's a Renaissance man.
I've got a clip of Bill Moseley just because I want to like. There's something about his cadence and the way he speaks in this that is just fantastic.
Do it.
It's a remarkable device, isn't it? Let me point out some of its finer qualities. Each arm is equipped with an explosive device. It's protective measure. These devices are connected to a neurosensor, which can recognize the impulse of a man intending to strike a helpless woman. Should that impulse be detected, an alarm will sound, and if unheeded, detonation will occur. Your trousers are also equipped with explosives, one at each testicule.
Kintama.
Really? I would have my Bernice returned to me unsoiled, sir, so best mind your manners.
That's like, he's just got this way of speaking, like, I don't know, I find like, it just turns of phrases. I think there's like a line delivery. I can't remember the exact line, but it's like, it really like tiptoes off his tongue in just a way that's like, he plays sleaze perfectly, Bill Moseley, right?
Absolutely. I mean, he's most well known now for like the Rob Zombie films, right?
Yeah, so
mainly.
He's kind of got this. I don't know. Even though I imagine he's a well-kept man, but like he's like he can. I don't know. There's a sheen of grease about him that like is perfect. Is perfect.
Grease is the word. I just love, so you mentioned it before, but Tak Sakaguchi is in this film as his kind of like right-hand man. And every time he has to call for him, I just was grinning ear to ear. He's like, Yasujiro! Yasujiro! It was just brilliant.
So let's talk about Tak Sakaguchi, because he gets minimal lines in this film, but like talk about like an actor who, I don't know, like can emote so much with his face, but like I don't know, it almost feels a disservice that he doesn't. Do you know what I mean? Like it feels like the East Asian actors are sidelined a lot in this film, like, which I don't know. It kind of feels.
I think it's hard. Again, I think a lot of Japanese actors do speak English,
yes,
but I don't think it's as common as you'd think. And I think Tak is probably one that hasn't, got a massive English vocabulary. So there might have been that barrier. But yeah, he's such a good-looking guy, and he's such a weapon with his like martial arts abilities. Like, have you seen Versus?
No.
That's like his big kind of calling card. Is this Ryuri Kitamura film where he's a samurai, but it's like a time travel film as well. It's almost like Highlander, where it's kind of like he's a samurai but with zombies and monsters, and it's utterly batshit, but it's fantastic, and he's so good in it. But he's a bit of a motor mouth as well. It's almost like Kurt Russell in Big Trouble in Little China, that kind of character. So yeah, the guy has range and talent. He's just not really used that well here. Mm-hmm. That being said, as you said, though, like he does have massive presence. He does a lot with just a look.
Yeah.
So props for that.
The thing is, like, he gets this like B plot, more like C plot almost, that gets brought in like maybe around the hour mark, and then is like, there's not much really done with it. You get this whole thing of like his relationship with his sister, and I think
like, that got cut in the fuck around. I think there was definitely more to that relationship than we saw. I mean, you got to think, right? Otherwise, that's just really sloppy writing.
Yeah, because it kind of just is announced, and then like you get that kind of one scene which obviously like it feels like it's an editing thing. So like, we can't cut this whole storyline out because we filmed this really cool action sequence of him kind of confronting the guys who are kind of trying to accost his sister. But at the same time, like, it's brought in around the hour mark, and then it's dropped almost immediately. And it feels like, I don't know, they needed to signpost that he is waning his kind of allegiances to the governor, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I kept waiting and waiting for this like epic showdown, which we do kind of get in the form of his sword fight with Nick at the end, where Nick's got a sword in replacing his hand. It's like a bloody stump after it exploded.
Yeah.
And then it kind of isn't that big of a showdown, is it, really? Like, it's a couple of hits, and he then destroys this legendary samurai in one hit.
Well, we get that moment where, like, we get that great moment of comedy from it when he kicks Cage's character in the nuts, and like the kind of sound design for it, you get like a kind of like almost like a pinball, like couple of dings, and then like I think like Cage is like, really, just like this kind of like and well, yeah. Should we talk about Cage? Let's talk about Cage in this film. What did you think of Nick Cage?
Why not? Yeah, I loved him. I thought he was great. I mean, you could tell he was having a blast. I thought when he first gets out of, I've just realised the wordplay, but when he gets out of that cage for the first time, he's ripped as fuck in this film, man. He's like, he's hench. I was like, I was not expecting that. I thought he was just going to hide underneath the leather for the whole film. But yeah, he's ripped out. And we get some really funny moments from him. I mean, the scene where his testicle blows up, I've rewound and watched that about 5 times now, and every time I have a tear in my eye from laughter, because he kind of gallops around like he's on a horse.
Well, yeah, I've got that to play, which I think translates well, even in audio.
I want that as my ringtone.
It's perfect. It would make a perfect kind of text tone. It's like, and that is preceded by this kind of like him kind of singing to Bernice about like taking off her clothes, and we get another. Yeah, I've just got some clips of some great Cage line delivery, and this is all about a scar that Bernice has on her leg.
Oh, that's quite a scar you got there. You did that roller skating? Woo! Take it off.
I think that just shows the fun that Cage was having. Just this kind of like, I don't know, just throwing in those eccentricities, like the kind of like, woo, and stuff like that. Just really like show you like how much fun he was having. Like, here's another clip for you, just because for any old Deadfall fans, you might recognise this line. Yeah, obviously that.
Fucking yeah.
Yeah, which is like,
great. Amazing.
What does he say? He says it to one guy at one point. I'll karate chop you. I'll karate chop every one of you. And
like there's a scene where he's getting overrun by those zombies, and he's like, "Stop touching me!
Yeah.
Stop touching me! Get off me!" I'm like, they're not going to listen to you, Nick. Yeah.
So
you can tell Sion hired him for a reason. Cage took the project for a reason. You know, I think they got on like a house on fire, and I think you could just tell that. You know, Cage was let free to do what he wanted. Sion just kind of like wrangled him. Yeah, I think his choices were perfect. I don't think there's anything wrong with this film that has to do with Nick Cage, personally.
Well, one of the things, like, I think the way I would describe this to people is it's Sion Sono directing a Nicolas Cage film as opposed to Nicolas Cage being in a Sion Sono film. I think that's
100%.
That's the way that, like, I think you can succinctly kind of put it. Like, if someone's a Sion Sono fan, being like, well, don't expect. Do you know what I mean? Don't expect. Why Don't You Play in Hell, or even like a Love Exposed. Like, don't expect those kind of films. I don't know. It's a weird one. It's a weird, like, and it's the thing. Like, I feel like I'm being down on it. I did enjoy it. There's a lot to enjoy in this film. There's a lot to kind of love, but like, since like delving back into the Sion Sono, like, it's kind of like, there could have been something else.
I think the way it's really important to think about it, just to kind of temper your expectations if you haven't seen it. Although I suppose everyone listening will have seen it.
Who knows?
Mostly. But if you think so, do you remember the Jonas Ackerlund film he did, Lords of Chaos?
Yes.
About the band killings that Sono was attached to that project for over a year.
Wow.
He was developing that film, and he had a really rough ride with it. It was going to be his first English language film, and it all got fucked up, and he got muscled out and all sorts, right? So if you think about that, and then he wrote this script with Adam that he pitched all over town and then just got rejected everywhere. And then he finally got this script that they were like, we'll let you do this. And all he wanted to do was make an English language film. And then when you're on production of it, you have a heart attack and you lose your stars and you have to move to Japan. Like, I don't know. I don't know if you've ever tried to make a film, but, you know, I've written a few scripts in my time. I used to back in the day. I went to, you know, I did film school and stuff, and I tried a bit. It's tough as nails, man. So any film getting made is a miracle in itself.
Yeah.
But I think this one had a lot of problems, and you know, the fact that we got a semi-coherent and really enjoyable piece of kind of genre cinema is enough for me. I was hoping for a bit more, but like you said, I mean, we're talking quite down on that. I had a really good time with it, and I guarantee if you and I ever get to meet in person, we could have a few beers and sit down and watch it, and we'll just laugh our ass off the whole way through and just have a really good time with it, you know?
Well, definitely. And I should probably get hot take number 2 out on the table.
Okay.
Which is, this is a spiritual sequel to The Wicker Man. What do you make of that? What do you make of that, Ben?
I mean, there's significantly less bees.
Yeah.
So I think,
but it does also have Nicolas Cage wandering around a place that he like a land full of unfamiliar faces with a photo of a girl being like, "Have you seen this girl? Have you seen this girl? Have you seen this girl?" It also has Nicolas Cage commandeering a bike.
Yes.
Which is also in The Wicker Man. And
that is what actually, oh, sorry.
Here is a quote from Nicolas Cage when he wanted to do a sequel to The Wicker Man, where he says, "I would like to hook up with one of those Japanese filmmakers, like the masters that made Ringu, and take The Wicker Man to Japan. Except this time, he's a ghost."
Oh, wow.
We've blown it out of the fucking park here. Like, the case is wide open, Ben.
Jesus, man. Where did you get that quote from?
That is from Empire.
Wow. I mean, oh yeah, I mean that is interesting. Although I would love to see Hideo Nakata do a Wicker Man sequel with Nick Cage. Genuinely, that would be kind of amazing.
But
yeah, wow.
But that like for me, it feels like for Cage, like for him, it's like I'm kind of living that dream somewhat through like a kind of like a different route. Do you know what I mean? Like I got to work with one of the Japanese masters. I got to make this kind of like film that I don't know has similarities in a way. It is about a guy who has no relations to the person he's looking for in any way, but is kind of put upon this mission to find them, and everyone, no matter if it's kind of friend or foe, throughout the journey seems to be against him. And he's
amazing.
Like on like
he killed two birds with one stone, didn't he? He got his sequel, and he had his druthers too. It's amazing. Do you know what, as well? I was looking up trivia for the film, because that's what I used to do on Sun Double Deep all the time. I was always my little bit. I was like, I've got a bit of trivia here.
Well, actually...
Apparently, yeah, exactly. Apparently, Cage met his fifth wife on the set of this film.
Yeah.
So he's now married to, it doesn't say who the lucky lady is, but...
her name is... it's like Rico, I think her first name is. I'm not sure about the surname. I guess it's Cage now because they're actually married. So
she's Japanese.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So that's the sort of thing I love to hear. Like Ryan Reynolds is like, you know, when people talk about the Green Lantern, he's like, I met I'm blanking her name now. His partner,
Blake Lively.
Thank you. I met Blake on that film, so I don't give a fuck what any of you think. It was the best decision I ever made in my life. You're like, yeah, fair play. Yeah, you can't say fairer than that, can you? If you meet the love of your life on a film.
It's so yeah, like, and there's a great story about apparently Nicolas Cage proposed to her over FaceTime and FedExed her the engagement ring, which like couldn't be a more like Nicolas Cage move if you'd asked for it. So I
think they're going to go the long way. I think they're going to last. Personally,
I
think fifth time's the charm.
So,
can I just go back before we move on though? Can I just go back to that bike scene, because that bike scene cracked me up so much. Yeah, where Tack basically gives him this like super powered like Mad Max style motor. And he's like, fuck that. And he just gets this little bicycle with a little bell and a basket on it and just starts cycling off into the desert.
I love their exchange when, like, he turns up with the car, which is this.
Not much time, huh? All right. All right.
You get that? That's what that is the thing in this film, is there are moments of just kind of like surrealist humor, and I guess it is that thing of like tempering your expectations of what to expect with this film, because it very much does play in the kind of Japanese sandbox and like East Asian sandbox of like filmmaking, where it's kind of like genres are not really on the table. It kind of, and like kind of overtly plays with that as well, because obviously like the imagery itself is East against West. Like you've kind of got this frontier town that is populated with cowboys and samurais simultaneously. So like the film and the like, I think like, I guess if this film had time to like, given the full Sion Sono treatment, would be able to explore the kind of themes that are kind of are there slightly. I think there are there are themes about like kind of imperialism and the kind of cult of personality, and almost like feels like a kind of critique on American culture in a way, because obviously like the governor is this kind of ruler of this town who seems to be all personality and not much else. Do you know what I mean? He's all kind of flash and pomp and stuff like
and
that.
Money, yeah.
And money. Yeah. He is like, I hate to say his name, but he's the guy in Home Alone 2 who shows Kevin McAllister to the foyer. Like, but like, yeah, and it deals with that, and it deals with weirdly, like, kind of deals with like the Japanese kind of feelings of what happened after Hiroshima, and kind of like the kind of ghost that has left over Japan as a country, and like kind of obviously how America is to blame for that. Do you know what I mean? You kind of got this American hero, like in quotes, like, and like he's the one who says like, I am radioactive, and it's very much like the actions that he was involved in, whether like not he was the one who killed those people in the bank, it was the guy he was with that kind of had this knock-on effect that they like had that. Do you know what I mean? Like, if Psycho wasn't arrested, maybe that convoy, that police like van, wouldn't have crashed and exploded and blew up the nuclear power plant and stuff like that. So it very much feels like it's playing with that kind of whole thing of like Americans' involvement and kind of what they did to Japan as well.
I mean, that again, I think that's a really well argued point. I think it's interesting that there's two non-Japanese writers writing about that. Because I mean, Sono has kind of tackled that. He didn't tackle Hiroshima like directly, but he did a film called The Land of Hope, which was about the earthquakes and you know, Tokyo trying to rebuild after that. And yeah, so he definitely he's politically minded. He's definitely anti-establishment, so that would ring true. Yeah, I think, you know, coming from film school background, you can argue the depth of cinema in everything, really. I think that's awesome that you got that from it.
Well, I'm just saying, like, that is there if you like, and that is me like really trying to almost like pull it out. Do you know what I mean? Pull it like pull it out of that, and like a lot of that was kind of stream of consciousness going like, this guy kind of got this, and like let's see it through to a logical conclusion. But like, that's what I mean. If it had, because I can only imagine that Sion Sono would have kind of had like a pass at the script, like, do you know what I mean? At least tried to put a bit of himself in there, especially once you moved to Japan, like, and for whatever reasons, whether it's WGA rules or whatever, couldn't like be credited as a writer or whatever. But at least, like, I reckon, especially like, yeah, once they made that move to Japan, there must have been some other stuff that would have made more sense with the setting than it would have.
If we talk about his involvement in it, though, I mean, I think the film looks incredible.
Oh,
I think his use of frame and the set design and the costumes and, you know, the colorization and all of that, it's so lush and it's so beautiful. Yeah, so I couldn't fault it in that sense. And I was very much like, when I was watching it, you know, just more enthralled by the general aesthetic of it than the content. And I hate to say that, but I am more of a visual guy than I kind of... I can forgive a story more than I can forgive, like, crap filmmaking. So, yeah, I was happy that it looked great. It sounded great. I guess I just wasn't looking for depth.
The score by Joseph Trapanese is amazing.
Yeah, it's beautiful, isn't it?
It's kind of really emotive of like a Sergio Leone's like score. Sergio. No, who am I?
Oh no,
Ennio
Morricone.
Morricone. Yeah, it's kind of like director. Get the composer's name right, but like it kind of had like you could see those touch points, but like it felt distant enough that it kind of, I don't know, like there's Yeah, there is a lot to love in this, and I'm kind of like, I'm excited to watch it more and more. I'm kind of like, I don't know,
You've seen the general consensus, though, right? Like, people haven't loved it. And I think, one of our mutuals on Twitter, you put out a tweet kind of saying, has anyone got any questions or comments for us for the recording? Pedro Perez, who I really like him a lot. He's always got some interesting stuff to say. He just put, it's too crazy for the average moviegoer and not crazy enough for Sono fans.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that's kind of perfectly describes how I feel about it. I think it's like diluted Sono, but I think people like my sister is going to watch this and go, what the actual fuck?
Yeah.
I can't watch this, So I don't know who it's for exactly. And I don't think it's found its audience massively. If you look at the general consensus on Letterboxd, it's middle to low range, I think.
So I got a message from a previous guest and mutual friend of ours, Becky Dark, once she saw it at Fright Fest, who said, hi fucking yeah, epic, bold, idiosyncratic, but accessible, entertaining, and nevertheless gorgeous to look at. Definitely horrid tinge with some nightmarish imagery and decent gore. Plus, it's always a treat to see Sofia Boutella. It's Paprika meets True Grit meets The Holy Mountain meets Mandy, and everything I wanted from a film where Sion Sono met Nicolas Cage.
Wow. I love hearing that as well. I will never shit on someone's chips because, you're wrong for liking it. I think that's amazing. I wish I had that reaction.
I do see some of those touch points. Like, I can kind of see the kind of Holy Mountain aspect of
the Holy Mountain for sure. As soon as you said that, I was like, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, it's kind of got this, especially the whole thing of like this idea. Yeah, it feels like there's a big thing of cults in this, whether it's the cult of the prisoners in the Ghostland, it's the cult of Samurai Town. Do you know what I mean? Like, everyone's kind of like in this kind of brainwashed state of like being like, and they're just, I'm stuck in what I'm doing and I'll just do it anyway. And like, that's something that I guess, the Holy Mountain deals with cults and all that shit.
I love Becky, and I think she has impeccable taste. So yeah, I love that take. And I think I had to wait for home viewing, because I know you went to Fright Fest to see it, didn't you? Yeah. And yeah, unfortunately I couldn't. My daughter was ill. I couldn't get away, so I had to wait for home viewing. So yeah, watching it on my laptop probably wasn't the best way of experiencing this film.
Oh, I saw it on like a massive screen, but like I didn't realize at the Cineworld Leicester Square like how close the seats were to the screen. So I was in like row D and watched the film with my neck cricked up, like kind of having to scroll anytime there were subtitles on screen, because I was just like, I'm too close. Like, and I kind of got more watching it a second time. Plus, at Fright Fest, I got overexcited and drank one too many beers, so I was probably half cut by the time credits, like the opening credits opened.
Yeah, I used to be a film reviewer on a local radio station here in Cambridge, and one night I went to see Trainspotting T2. And I don't know why. I think on that, because normally I'd have a couple beers and go see a film, it'd be fine. I don't know why on that particular night I got so leathered that when I was in the film going like, oh my gosh, like I'm really drunk. And I woke up the next morning to go to the radio station to record I couldn't remember anything about the film, like literally. So they were asking me all these questions. I was like, it was good. It wasn't as good as the first, I don't think, but the music was great, and I had nothing to say. I felt awful, and then I rewatched it sober, like when it came out on home release, and loved it. And,
Can I go back?
Anyway.
It's better than the first. It's better than the first. Amazing. So yeah, like, is there any scenes or anything that we've kind of not touched upon that you feel like we kind of should shine a light on?
Definitely, actually. One of my favourite scenes, and one of the creepiest scenes for me, is the human mannequins. it's kind of touched upon why they're in there, because they can't talk. They're like consumed by this force within the Ghostland, and they're covered in. They look like mannequins, but they're cracked, and you can kind of peel it off, almost like skin. And yeah, Cage is like taking bits off, and he's like looking in their eyes or at their nose and trying to find where this girl is. And Boutella's at the end, and yeah, it just really creeped me out. I thought it was really well done. It was dark and scary, and I didn't know where it was going to go. You know, I really, really enjoyed that part.
I wish we'd kind of like got. I don't know. I kind of wish this had been able to sit in those moments a bit more. Do you know what I mean? Like, kind of really leaned into that unsettling nature, and kind of like, because he basically turns up to the Ghostland and finds Bernice in a matter of minutes, right?
Straight away, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like,
yeah,
that kind of like push and pull, a man who's kind of like a villain wherever he goes, I think would have been like a more interesting way to take this story. And that thing of like, do you know what I mean? Like, he knows in his heart of hearts or whatever that like he didn't do the things that he's like accused of. Do you know what I mean? Like, that was psycho, like Nick Cassavetes' character. But like that kind of like, it would have been cool that the audience know that or whatever. But then like wherever he like, yeah, he's like a Clint Eastwood man with no, do you know what I mean? Like whatever saloon, whatever town he turns up in, he's like enemy number one. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I think it would have benefited, kind of leaning more into the Western tropes almost, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, I think I would have preferred a more Western approach in that sense. Like, not Western as in American, but Western as in the genre, or going the other way and being more horror focused.
Yeah,
like the zombie scene where they're overrun by zombies. It felt very. It was almost like action oriented rather than horror oriented.
Well, yeah,
like it wasn't really scary or tense. It was more just like a punch up, like a John Wick style fight or something, you know?
Yeah, it looked like a dance sequence almost. You know what I mean? Like, they kind of the way they like moved about, they look very much like dancers, like kind of crawling about and stuff like that. And like, it is that thing that like those scenes, like they don't amount to, they kind of like, it's constantly like Cage is being knocked out throughout this film, having dreams and then waking up, and it's like, cool, if we can really like delve into these dreams and really go like fucking cuckoo bananas, full Sion Sono, and like this is in my notes, I've got to say it, like, this film, for the setting it's in, for the fact that it is in a fantastical and like otherworldly setting, doesn't feel as fantastical and otherworldly as other Sion Sono films, which are like based in the real world. And I think like Love Exposure is a perfect example. Like, and again, it might come back to the fact that it's like an ignorant Western eye than the fact that it's Japan, it's over there. It's like it has an element of the other anyway, but at the same time, like, you feel like even in Japanese culture, the things that are like the way that life is portrayed and the way that kind of like, do you know what I mean? Like a guy becoming a kind of, I don't know, like famous panty peekaboo. Like, do you know what I mean? Like photo taker is not the norm, but like that feels very fantastical and otherworldly, but at the same time is grounded in the real world. And I'm not sure whether it is that thing that this is hamstrung by the fact that it is, I don't know, like it is it is an American film first and foremost.
I think if you and I were going to have a night on the town, right, and we had 200 quid, it would be a significantly better and crazier night than if we had 50 quid, right? And that's basically what happened with this film. It was supposed to have 20 mil and it ended up with 5, and it had to move location halfway through. So yeah, I think, best intentions, but it all kind of fell apart. And again, sorry, you're right. I keep getting to like the negative of it. Like, we should be more celebrating what worked about it, because it
that
was
feels
under
like it's
so
me.
much
Sorry, I
pressure.
feel like I'm.
No, not at all. I'm definitely the same. Definitely the same. I think, I need to watch it again, preferably with someone like yourself, or I might try. I don't know if Daryl and Jeanette have seen it yet. I'm going over theirs in a couple of weeks. I might try and get them to watch it with us.
I got a message from Jeanette. Shout outs, Jeanette. Wah, wah, wah. She messaged me being like, I think I'm going to love this film, because I went on Sudden Double Deep and talked about Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, The Wicker Man, and Mandy, and
they broke the rules for you, didn't they?
Yeah, I think
amazing.
It was. Look, I did say there are enough Man films in Cage's back catalogue to do a triple bill of Man films, but they were like, no, we'll do Mandy. But Jeanette and me were very much on the same page about Mandy. Like both Matt and Daryl were lukewarm to kind of disliking it. Whereas
I watched Mandy with Daryl, and he was kind of like, meh. I loved it. That was a 5-star masterpiece to me. But
but it's I kind of got this message being like, oh yeah, I like, she was like, I'm gonna have to see it, and it's like that thing of like, I just like, it's the thing, I don't want to discourage anyone from seeing this film, because if anything, and I think like this is probably like, before we get into kind of closing statements on this film, is for me, even if this is a gateway to more Sion Sono films, that's a reason enough to watch it. Do you know what I mean? Like, if this is going to open your eyes to be like, oh, I saw something in that, I'm not sure what it was, but what was that amazing, like, vanity card you see at the front? Do you know what I mean? That kind of like scrawled name at the front, like, who is that guy? Do you know what I mean? Because Sion Sona has that amazing, like, kind of card that comes up every time one of his films kind of looks like.
Well, because that's his art, man. Yeah. Like, again, if you've seen anything from Takeshi Kitano, he puts a lot of his paintings in his films. But Sono likes to do these massive prints and then just throws them in there. I love that about him too. And you'll see you're going through his filmography, especially if you get into some of the older stuff. It's so much cruder and crazier. It's so gnarly. I think I do like this kind of go for broke side of Sono. Like, he definitely kind of went out of his comfort zone and went a bit crazy here. But ultimately, he's always at his best when he's writing his own screenplays, and seeing them through to the end. So the film he did just before this is a film called Red Post on Esher Street. And if you like Love Exposure, I cannot recommend it enough. It's like very similar look and feel. It's only 2 hours, so it's a lot more manageable. But it's an incredible piece of work. It's got so much to say about the Japanese film industry. It has a lot about like grief and like existentialism, why we're here on the planet. But the Red Post on Esher Street that the title's about is this one post box that all these actresses are putting their resume through to try and get their place in his new film. And it kind of shows their lives. And so whilst you see the one girl that gets the role, you also follow the girls that don't. Amazing. And how much that affects them and like rolls on. And it's just fantastic. And if you saw these two back to back, you'd be like, that's not the same director. It's just amazing. So like you said, I hope this is many people's first Sono film, and I hope they go, Jesus, I want to see what else he's done, and it just gets better from there, basically. The only way is up.
Amazing. So I like to round off these episodes by asking some very trivial questions, but they tell us something about Nicolas Cage. So does Nick Cage have bad hair in this film?
I wouldn't say bad hair, no.
No, he's
very
pretty groomed. He's looking quite handsome. I really love that scene when there's the girl doing the sketch of him, and then like he takes off his kind of like nappy, and then she rubs out, and then we get that great bit of humor where it like cuts away to another girl who says like, I've seen bigger. And it's those tiny moments are fantastic. But yeah, Cage is looking sexy in this film. I got to give him that. He looks sexy.
I think that was, they were going for that, weren't they? They wanted him to be the big, tall, broad, muscular, strong American man. Yeah. He looks good.
Something that Cage is known for, maybe not so much these days, but I guess like kind of in the 80s, and he's kind of pulled it out from time to time. If you saw Southern Fury, or I think it's called Arsenal in this country.
I didn't see that one.
He does a crazy voice in that film, but does he do a crazy voice in Prisoners of the Ghostland?
I don't think he does his normal voice. I think he definitely puts an affectation on it. Yeah, but I wouldn't say it was crazy. It's recognizable very much, but
well, yeah. Let's have another little dose of his voice for you guys, in case you forgot.
Possible? Ha! If you had told me 3 days ago I'd be standing here with one arm and one testicle, trying to reason with you, bitches, I would have said impossible too. But I'm telling you, there's a way. There is no way.
So, yeah, that is who else could deliver? Who else could mangle the word testicle and make it sound so great, right?
I love that Bill and Nick got a chance to use the word testicle in their own way.
They both say it in a completely different way as well.
Testicle.
Yeah. Testicle.
Yeah. I think that clip just answered your next question, right?
Yeah. Does Cage freak out in this film?
Yeah, he does. He gets pissed off when he loses his ball.
The nut coming off. I think he's kind of like on the edge of freaking out throughout the film, right?
Yeah, but he's also got this weird stoic calm as well. It is a weird.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to pin down, but yeah, definitely he's on the precipice of a Cage out at any time.
What I love about this film is the fact that like I have a thing on this podcast where it's like earned freakouts, and it's kind of like if you were put in that situation, of course you'd fucking be freaking out. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and the go-to scene, I think unrightfully is put in this kind of thing of being like, oh, isn't that kind of this Cage wigging out? Is the Mandy bathroom scene, and that is like I think that's what like spawned the whole thing of me going like, no, there's earned freakouts. That is very much like a freak out where you go, you watch the love of your life be burned alive, and then and
drink a bottle of vodka.
Drink a bottle of vodka and scream in a bathroom.
Yeah, in your pants. Yeah, no, definitely. So, I think that's fair, and I think this is an earned one for sure.
Yeah,
I said, that scene where he's galloping after his ball explodes is one of the funniest things. I think it will go down as my favourite scene of the year, probably.
And the fact that like this film literally has the balls to show us him holding his like blown off testicle as well. It's like, I think that's worth your price of admission alone.
Although it's still intact, basically, isn't it? It's like Yeah, it's not exploded. It's just like a testicle that's no longer connected to his body.
Yeah, logic is out the window, but it all makes sense. So,
very good.
Is Nick Cage the greatest actor of all time, Ben?
He's certainly one of, if not the most interesting. And I know that's always a bit of a funny word. Like if I tell my partner that the dinner she cooked was interesting, it's not a good thing. But yeah.
That is like the any time I've ever like been like to my parents like, oh, you really need to watch this film. At the end of it, they go, oh, that was interesting, and I revert to a teenage boy. Do you know what I mean? Like of being like, you guys don't understand me.
Yeah, there's not many actors that I will instantly perk up my ears when I hear there's a new project from them.
Yeah,
but Nick Cage is definitely one of them. Just because I just want to see what the guy is interested in next. I think he's so, like I said, he's interesting, really interesting. I don't know if he's the greatest actor. Do you think so?
I'm still undecided.
Okay.
That's why I said they're very flippant questions, and it's like,
yeah, sure.
It's almost not my place to answer that question. Maybe like once like he leaves this mortal plane, like whenever that will be. I know he's recently stated in an interview that he will keep acting until that day.
There's no retiring. Yeah, I love that.
So then I feel like I can pass judgment. In the meantime, I'm just a conduit to get other people's opinions and kind of correlate that information.
I've got nothing but respect for the guy, honestly. And the fact that he's had such a long career. I mean, and also, I mean, I know that there's rumors of he's been a bit crazy and he's done some really insane stuff. But I mean, as soon as that Me Too movement started, right, I was just waiting for the Nick Cage stuff to come out, you know, because he just seems like the sort of guy that would be on the wrong end of that. And, you know, so far, I mean...
Yeah, I like that's the thing, like that all started, like that all kind of like became a big push, like the Me Too movement in the early days of this podcast. And I think there's jokes on, or like, do you know what I mean? Like me referencing it being like, or I probably said it privately, being like, I might have picked the wrong actor to do a podcast about, like, if this all, like, this could all go tits up in, like, in no time or whatever. But, like, I think, I don't know, like, I don't know much about him personally, and I'm kind of glad about that. I think, like, he is a remnant of something that we've lost in Hollywood, of this kind of, like, you know what you need to know about him, but, like, what you do know about him is he seems like a decent guy who respects his own privacy. He seems really cordial when people meet him. He seems like, do you know what I mean? Like he
doesn't take himself too seriously.
Yeah.
You know, like there's that, I forget what they call it, but it's like the Cage Festival or whatever. He turns up to that, right? Every year.
Yeah, he turned up to a Nick Cage festival and like read an excerpt from like Edgar Allan Poe or something like that, which sounds,
of course he did.
Sounds absolutely batshit mental. And like I've been fortunate enough to speak to people who've worked with him, and everyone has said like how professional it is. Like he'll come to set with like script notes, knowing the script back to front, knowing his lines, knowing other people's lines, kind of like going like, I thought this and that of the character. And that's on a film that might be $20 million, but that will still be the case if it's a film that costs $3 million. So like,
sure. Yeah.
The guy's a professional and like
totally respects the craft. Yeah. Nothing but love for him. Like I say, I was so happy when you messaged me to say, dude, in about a year's time, you could come on the show. I'm saving the Sono one for you. And yeah, and it just kept getting delayed and all sorts of stuff. But I'm so happy to be here and chatting about it. It's been awesome.
Well, no, thank you, Ben. This is like I've been a massive fan of Sudden Double Deep for a while. I've like listened to the archive episodes and stuff like that. As much as I love Matt, I love your episodes equally as much. And like,
oh, bless you. I miss it so much, man. I really do. And I'm almost at the point now where I could potentially maybe start thinking about going back, but then it's just too much like pissing on Matt's chips. He's in there now. But yeah, I mean, I've got a new one coming up that I'm really excited about that obviously we'll probably get to in a bit. But yeah. So, I'm not out the podcasting game for good.
This is the perfect time for plugs. Plug your wares. Sell us your wares, Ben.
Okay, well, it's a bit ethereal at the moment because it doesn't actually exist yet, but it is coming soon. And the guy I keep talking about, Adam Terrell, who runs Third Window, him and I have built up a relationship over the last year or so where I just love his films and he loves talking about his films. And we had these mad, like, Zoom conversations and text threads. And one day I was just like, man, have you ever thought about doing a podcast? And he said, I would love to, but I haven't got the kind of get up and go to do it all. And I said, well, would you want to do it with me? And he was like, 100%, let's do it. And that was it. And I was like, right, okay. So coming soon, we have the Third Window Films podcast. And the premise is it's the celebration of all things Third Window Films from the perspective of the fan, being me, and the man, being Adam. And so he tells stories about his experiences in the Japanese film industry. He's produced films. He's been obviously on the distribution side of things for a long, long time. he's worked with pretty much every director, from Takashi Miike and Takeshi Kitano to Sion Sono, and he's just like this amazing, generous guy who loves talking about film. He's Greek British, but he's lived in Japan for like 20 odd years. And yeah, it's going to be a total blast. So our first episode is going to be on Toshiaki Toyoda, who's this really just punk rock director. You would love his stuff, man. He's
Amazing.
done, so the first thing that he released was this box set called The Early Years, where he did Porno Star, which was his debut film, which is kind of this like Reservoir Dogs style crime film, but mixed with kind of like high school like angst cinema.
Amazing.
He also did like Blue Spring. He's done Nine Souls. Anyway, and now what we've got coming out soon is the later years, so all of his experimental stuff that he's doing now. So we're going to do the first episode focusing on that. But then beyond there, we're going to be doing focuses on different directors. So Sono is 100% going to be an episode. So will be Kitano, and yeah, I just cannot wait. There's going to be a lot to look forward to. I don't know if you've seen the films of Shinya Tsukamoto.
No, of course I haven't, Ben. I'm a Philistine. I'm too busy watching Nicolas Cage straight to VOD films.
I don't know. You might. He did Tetsuo, the Iron Man. You know that one?
I know the film. It's on my list. It is on my list.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that guy is like a hero to me. I think his films are just the bee's knees. And so I said to Adams, like, we have to have a Tsukamoto episode, and oh my God, we're going to do this and the other. And he's like, oh yeah, I'll speak to Shinya. I'm sure he'll come on the show. And I was like, what? And I'm like, yeah, man, he's into that sort of thing. I was like, oh fuck. Like, so yeah, I'm kind of pinching myself at the moment, like living the dream a little bit.
Amazing.
So yeah, I can't wait. So if you look at my Twitter is at BenjiBox, that's Benji with a Y and then box, all one word, or at Third Window is Adam's account. If you just keep an eye on that, we'll be able to update you. I don't know an exact release date yet, but it'll be sometime in October. We'll be starting that and rolling on, hopefully monthly from there. Amazing.
I can't wait for that, Ben. Just like speak to you how passionate you are about East Asian cinema and just films in general, just to like, I don't know, like, and obviously speaking to you personally about this kind of project coming up. I'm sure I speak for myself as well as the people listening as well, like kind of hearing your kind of enthusiasm that it's going to be an amazing, amazing podcast. And thank you so much for coming and getting caged in with me.
Thank you, mate. It was a real pleasure. I can't wait. And I hope you'll kind of watch along with the podcast when we go. You know, now you're into your Sono, you can keep going down this East Asian rabbit hole. I will. Before you know it, this podcast will be ditched and I'll be fully on the East Asian cinema train. We'll be like Caged in Tokyo or something. Amazing.
So there we go, guys. Until Nicolas Cage releases a new film, we are on top of the mountain. We are up to date with what he has out. I think the next film on the docket, potentially, is The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, unless for some reason the retirement plan has a real quick turnaround in post-production and we get that first. Thank you so much again for listening, and thank you to Ben for coming on this episode. I had so much fun. Ben is so lovely, and I cannot wait for the Third Window Films podcast. It's going to be great, right? You've heard how enthusiastic Ben is about East Asian cinema, so you can only imagine what a whole podcast dedicated to that will be like, especially seeing as the stories he told us of Adam. Seems like the guy's got connections. He knows everyone. He's got the stories. Ben's got the kind of love and the analytical eye for this stuff. So yeah, I cannot wait. Obviously, in this episode, I did some really spicy hot takes. If you have some spicy hot takes of your own, please don't hesitate to get in touch. You can do on all the social media. So that is Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Letterboxd at Caged In Pod. Always love to hear from you guys. Let's have a good old chat. Let's have a debate. Did you love this film? Did you hate this film? Let me know. Either way, I'm not going to argue with you. We're just going to have a fun old chat. Or if you want to confess your love for me, or you want to tell me your deepest, darkest secrets, you can always drop me an email, which is cagedinpod@gmail.com. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, any of the other episodes on my kind of split personality podcast, Caged In Presents Coppola Connections, if you've enjoyed any of it, if you enjoy the 149 episodes that I've released of this podcast before we hit the big 150, is that a cause for celebration? It possibly is, but we'll be celebrating somewhat next week, as I mentioned in the intro, when I'll be doing a Nick Cage all-nighter marathon kind of recap about the turmoil on mine and my guests' bodies and kind of the experience as a whole. If you enjoy the podcast, please don't hesitate to rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Acast, or wherever you're listening to this right now. Or you want to give me a little bit of money, you can do. You can either head on over to patreon.com/cagedinpod. I do promise that there is more stuff coming. I've just recently started a new job and I'm trying to balance things at the moment, trying to figure out how I can sustain doing the podcast as it regularly is whilst working, as well as trying to slot in some bonus stuff. I get overexcited, guys. I normally like the cool bonus stuff. I know, like, I'm not as savvy as other podcasts. They just like stick that behind a paywall and get loads of money. I'm just kind of like, I'm so excited about this, I want to share it with you. So I need to get better at being stingy, basically. Or if you just want to buy me a cup of coffee, no strings attached, just one-off payment, you can do so, which is at ko-fi.com/cagedinpod. All that money goes back into the podcast, goes into kind of weird and wonderful things we have planned in the future, whether that is merch or kind of equipment that I want to get, or anything like that, kind of make the podcast sound better, look better, give you guys cool stuff that you can wear, listen to, whatever. So that all of that is greatly appreciated. So as always, I have been Petros Patsilivus. I have been Caged In. I'll catch you next time.